Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here. I want everybody to give me a thumbs up, a Zoom thumbs up if you can see my screen. I was sharing with Emily and Carol earlier that in my day job, I once did an entire info session showing my calendar. So I'm a little gun shy and I need that reassurance. So thank you. I see some thumbs up and some hands up. All right, great. Thank you so much. So this is me. I am a lifelong gardener, and the thing that I love the most about gardening is the learning and the sharing. I've never met a gardener who wasn't generous with their expertise and their time. And so I started a business to coach people. And so I hope you visit my website, and I hope you enjoy tonight. So, why would you want to sow seeds in winter? So there's lots of reasons. Some seeds require cold in order to germinate, and that's called cold stratification. And so they actually need that cold climate in order to kick into life. It kind of mimics winter sowing mimics the natural world in which they would live if they were just sprinkled on the dirt. But in winter sowing, they're a little more controlled. Some seeds, they'll say to be put them in the refrigerator before you sow them. This mimics that. And the other great reason to winter sow is you won't need dedicated space in your home if you want to start seeds. You don't need special lighting. You don't need any kind of fancy equipment. So it's very economical. It's downright cheap, which is another thing that I try to find the least expensive way to do my gardening. And so this is a great way to do it. And the other reason is that if you've ever sown seeds in your home and started them in that warm environment of your house, one of the things that you need to do before you just put them out in the world is you have to harden them off. And if you're not familiar with that terminology, that means acclimating them to the cold, to the harsh outside of your house. And with winter sowing, you don't have to do that because they're outside already. So they're acclimating to the cold and to the warmth. And so because of that, the other thing that's really cool is they are often much stronger seedlings as a result. They haven't had to go through this harsh extremes once they start growing. I grow some seeds in my home, and I'll talk about that later. And sometimes they're a little spindly and they're a little wobbly and not as vigorous as seeds are when you winter sow them. And then the final reason is it's really fun. I think it's fun. It is something to do in the winter when you're just, maybe you've had it, you haven't spent any time outside, and lots of gardeners love the winter, but then also get a little itchy to get out there. And this is a way to kind of do that. So the best seeds to sow, the ones that I start with are those seeds that I mentioned that need that cold stratification. Or you can start with seeds that just do well in cool temperatures. A lot of native plants, a lot of perennial natives like coneflowers and lavender and milkweed, and they need that stratification. So those are good ones to start with. Poppies are not necessarily native or they're not necessarily perennial, but they also need that cold in order to kickstart their germination. And then as far as vegetables go, lettuces, kale, spinach, all of those kinds of lettuces, or all those kinds of vegetables rather, that do well in cool temperatures. These are ones that are great to start when you're just beginning learning how to do this. And this picture here shown in there is some of my lavender, and lavender is great for this. So what do you need to get started? You basically need some junk around your house. So empty, clean, and clear plastic containers. Some people use plastic storage bags. I'm not going to ever say, oh no, don't do that. cool if you want to do that. But I like to use things that I've already used. So to give them another life, reduce, reuse, recycle. And so I use mostly, like a whoops, hello, where am I? There we go. I use milk containers, or this one is from my neighbor who makes his own hard cider from, so he gives me all of his containers from Shaw's um orchard. Yeah. And you can use lots of different plastic containers. Another great one is these containers are just oh, here we go. They're just the devil as far as like plastic, so much plastic. And but they're great. They're really great for this. They even have their own little lid already. It's all one piece. Those are really good. Other than that, you need potting mix. In seed starting, sometimes you're using seed starting mix. This actually does better if you have an actual potting mix. It's a little richer than a soilless seed starting mix. But if all you have is seed starting mix, that's okay too. Then you need something to cut with because you're going to perform some surgery on these containers. And then something to keep them closed because you'll see we make it sort of like a hinge so that they can be opened later. So you'll need something to tape it. Duct tape works great. Any kind of tape that is weatherproof so that it's secure, but then you can also get it off when it's time. Something to poke drainage holes in the container. That's really important because this will be sitting outside. The rain will come or the snow, and you don't want things to get too waterlogged. Plants hate that. So when I'm doing a lot of containers, I will sometimes use a drill because that is really good to do a whole bunch of them. But a knife or an X-Acto knife, that works fine. A waterproof marker. I used to use the good old, the one that everybody uses now, Sharpies. Those are waterproof to a degree. With the sun, these are going to be out in the elements. I've ended up using called a garden marker, and this is specifically for gardening, and I have really good results with this. And then a plant marker, just because it's like belt and suspenders. I put a plant marker inside the container just in case my marker that's on the outside um, gets worn off, just so you know what the heck you planted. And then, of course, your seeds. And that's it. That's all you need. So you probably have a whole lot of things right around your house. So, when to start? You can start winter sowing anytime between January and March. We are, depending on our zip code, and sometimes it depends on the site that you go on. Our zone is sometimes 6, sometimes 6B, some elevations it might be 7. So for tonight, I'm saying between January and March. So the earliest ones that you're going to want to plant are those ones that need that stratification or the cold tolerant ones. Then later in the winter, as you get closer to February into March, you can do more hardy perennials and annuals then. Or I'm sorry, you can do more tender plants then, including the annuals and vegetables that can be sown later. They don't need that stratification time, but if you want to get them started a little bit and want to try it out, you can do those closer to February or March. Um, and the hardy ones are anything that thrives in a harsh environment. So my favorites to sow are the poppies, like I mentioned earlier. I love straw flowers, French marigolds. They are wonderful. Celosia. I love all the brassicas, but I also love parsley and cilantro. You don't think of cilantro. I think of cilantro as, with Mexican food or something like that. So maybe it would be a little tender. No, cilantro likes cold. So that's a great one to start if you like cilantro and it doesn't taste like soap to you. Onions, dill, carrots are a little touchy. You can try it. They don't necessarily like to be transplanted, but it's so fun to try. So if you want to give it a whirl, give it a whirl. And then for perennials, I love thyme, lavender again, the milkweed, and any kind of salvia. I really love salvia. And so these are the ones that I am going to do every single year. So here's the let's do it part. I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to take off this video, whoops, I'm going to take off my background because I don't like how it's showing when I try to, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Please hold. There we go. Now you can see my room. Okay, so now you're going to be able to see what I'm doing a lot better. Going to put you up on my very sophisticated pile of books so that you can see everything. So here's my milk container. So what we're going to do with this milk container, I started it off just in case I was having trouble, is I'm going to take the X-Acto knife and I'm basically going to cut this right, right below here, right below where the handle is, but not all the way through on either side. I'm going to cut all the way around with my X-Acto knife and try not to cut myself. Right, I started it before I was on the call. Okay. So I'm going all the way around and I'm not going in a straight line because I'm on the call in front of people. So you can see kind of janky. That's okay. But I left a piece together on the back. So that ends up being a hinge. And congratulations, friends. We just made a tiny little greenhouse. And so that's the first step. Then gonna want to make some holes in the bottom. Probably should have done this beforehand. Just puncture some holes, like four to six holes. You don't have to go crazy, but some just so that we have some drainage. Some people some people do the top two, but we're going to leave the lid off, and that is where we're going to get the rain if it rains or the snow melt, and that's how this is going to be watered for most of the time that it is sitting outside. So here we've got it ready to go. And then off here, I've got some potting soil and I've added water to it so that if you squeeze it, it goes together, but it doesn't squeeze out a whole bunch of water. You don't want it to be totally waterlogged, just enough to make it moist. And so I'm putting that in here, just enough so that it's about, I don't know, 2 inches deep or so. You can see that is plenty deep. You don't need a ton. I'm going to tamp this down a little bit. And for tonight, I'm gonna do May apple. So this is a really good example of a native flower or plant that really benefits from that cold stratification. And it says it right here on the seed packet. And so sometimes seed packets will say it right there. Some seed vendors have like a key where it'll say like G1, or they have their own kind of code, and it'll tell you what kind of conditions the seeds need to be under. This one I like because it says it right out on the outside. I've never used these seeds before, this brand, but it gets really good ratings, and I like the container because it's foil and because I keep seeds for a really long time. So the seed packet has a lot of information as well. So some seeds may need complete darkness to germinate. Some seeds need no darkness, and so they need to be on the surface. So it's important that you read your seed packet, but also you don't need to be too precious. Don't worry. It's going to work. It's going to work out. And what I do is I will take a good number of seeds This packet does not have a ton, which is very interesting. Maybe my rating's not going to be so great for this seed company. But you don't have to worry about putting them in here in like a certain number of inches apart from each other. You can kind of just go for it. So I put them in, I sprinkled them in here. These don't say anything about needing light, so I'm going to just push them down so that they are making good contact with the soil. Stick them in a little tiny bit. A good rule of thumb is the size of the seed is basically the depth that it should be as well, unless it says it needs light. And then I'm just going to tamp it down. That is it. I planted my seeds. And so the only thing you have to do now is tape it shut. And this is another thing. You don't have to be too worried about perfection. I feel like I love the internet. I love all these different gardeners out there who are telling you how to do things, but everybody gets so precious and so exacting that I feel it feels like it becomes then unattainable. I'm not going to do it right. This is really not that deep, man. You just have to make sure it's covered. So I'm just going to put tape all around the outside. You can see it doesn't even match up exactly. That's okay. That is going to be enough insulation so that on the days that it starts to get warm, all the way in March, when we start to have some of those days where it gets a little warm, this area in here will become like a little greenhouse. It will be surprisingly warm when you if you put your finger in there during the winter, if you've had a couple of warm days, this will feel like a humid greenhouse. It's really cool. And that's it. So with these kind of containers, it's awesome. It's already got the hinge. You don't need to cut anything. You'll need to make a cut and basically the same size or so as what we have here on this jug. Make a cut in here so that it can get any kind of precipitation that's falling. Make some holes in the bottom if it doesn't already have holes. Some of the strawberry containers are great for that because they've already got like those lines that are in the bottom, those holes. These are great. And you can pack a lot of seeds in here. Again, it doesn't matter if they get crowded or not, because these are going to be so strong and so hardy that when it's time to replant them, you can lift them out and separate them. And you could have 30 plants in here, which sounds crazy, but you really could. So that's a good other container. This is a great container right here. This is a good one. You'd have to do the cutting around it just like you did with the jug here. These little ones, if you only want to do like a small amount, I probably should have done those May apples in here once I saw that there were like 6 seeds in there. But this one is great for, you just want to have maybe 10 plants or five to 10 plants. Those are great. Any kind of plastic container is really going to be great. It should be clear, but this isn't completely clear, but it just shouldn't be dark. It needs to be clear and light enough so that the sun can get through. Now I'm coming back to you. Hello. Are there any questions so far? And feel free to unmute yourself and just say it if you'd like.
Do you need to do more watering?
So that isn't, I'm going to have some slides that talk about that, but just very briefly, mostly you're not going to have to. As the winter ebbs and we start to get warmer days, if we don't have a good April rain, you might have to add a little bit of water, but it's really amazing how little care you really need for these when they're out there. Um, when I do have to water, I'm very judicious about it. I'll do like a spray so that again, I'm not waterlogging them. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. The only time you'd ever have to do any watering is if it's really dry. If it's really dry. Otherwise, there's enough. humidity, enough moisture. Maybe it's not rain, but there's enough moisture just in the air, our lovely, humid, damp Northeast. It's kind of perfect for this. And that's another reason because it's like very little care. Any other questions so far? All right, well, I'll get right back into my presentation.
I'm
Some of
just
those
going to
questions.
jump in to
Oh, yeah, go
say
ahead.
that we are going to have a recording of this available through the co-op's website and also through YouTube. So I just wanted to mention that in case anybody missed the beginning.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let me hide my controls here because I cannot see a thing. Can't see what I wrote. So here we go. Here's where we go to caring for them, watering. Great question. So, like I said, unless it's a really dry winter, you shouldn't have to water them until the spring when those plants are really growing and we were having a lot more warm days. When days start to warm up, and you have, a good warm day, meaning it's like, 50 degrees or something like that, and your plants are growing, you can take off some of the tape and open it up and air those guys out. And again, it's like that's helping with the hardening off too. But some of them, it really depends on how big the plant is. You don't kind of want to don't do anything to them until they've gotten their true leaves and they're really kind of growing into like grown up plants. But you can see in the picture here that they're really jammed in there, like I said. And this is probably, I'm guessing this is probably like April that this picture was taken. And if the days are warm, we open them, but then you have to close them up if the nights are below 40 degrees. And in the Northeast, our weather is so changeable. That's the only thing you want to just keep an eye on. Um, as far as planting goes, you can do things like kale as soon as they have their true leaves, and anything that the seed packet says, as soon as the ground can be worked, peas, kale, broccoli, things like that. You can go ahead and plant them in your garden in the place that they're going to live for their lifespan because they've been acclimating and they're ready to go. You might be a little precious about them because you've nurtured them and everything. And if they're really tiny, you might want to give them some protection from critters and things like that. But as far as being safe to put them out there in the weather, they'll be fine. And you can't say that for seeds that you start inside your house. So where do I get my seeds? I am always finding new places, but I'll tell you what, I really love territorial seeds. They have amazing varieties. And this is a reason why I encourage people to start seeds rather than getting, or in addition to buying plants, there's nothing wrong with buying plants. But when you have seeds, you can get varieties that you never see in the supermarket, you never see at a nursery. And that's what I really love, besides being inherently cheap. That's what I really love about starting seeds is I've planted things over the years that I've never seen before. Like pink celery, Chinese celery where the whole stalk is pink, like a bubblegum pink. You don't see that in the supermarket. You don't see that at a plant store. So that's one of the reasons why I love it. It is more economical. A pack of seeds. Although tomatoes right now are really expensive in some of these, like I've seen tomato seeds for $20, which is crazy. But mostly, the most I really pay for a pack of seeds, and these are what I call expensive, is $6. But I was at the farm show this weekend and I found Roar Seeds. This is a new to me company. You might know of them. They're in Lancaster, which I love that they're in Pennsylvania. $1.99. There are hundreds, easily hundreds of kale seeds in here. And so, will all of them germinate? Maybe, maybe not, but most of them should if they're packaged for this year. They're fresh, and that is a huge savings. So, Territorial Seeds is kind of like my fancy seed place. John Sheepers, they have wonderful varieties of kitchen garden things. And my gardener, he's wonderful. He's on YouTube as well. His seeds are $1.99, $2.99, something around there. And then Prairie Moon Nursery, if you really want to start growing native plants, they're a really great resource. Native plants sometimes can cause you to have extreme patience. They might take a little longer to grow, but this is a great way to do it. And then you can see the other ones that I have listed here. This Everwild, like I said, is new to me. I will report back. If we do this next year, I'll let you know if I really do like them. But again, like I got a huge variety of seeds from them, and they were really reasonably priced. And then there are other seeds that you can get for free, which is amazing. There are seed libraries. And Emily, I hope this is true still, that there's a seed library on the South Side branch. Are
I
you there,
believe
Emily?
so. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
not completely familiar with that branch yet, but I think so.
Yeah, they saw on the website they have seeds, they have garden tools that you can borrow, which is awesome. Emmaus Public Library has a seed library, Palmerton has a seed library. Then the Seed Girl, they're free. You're just paying for shipping. And I found out from somebody I met at the farm show that this website too, Free Heirloom Seeds. If you really get into heirlooms, and again, it's like the varieties that are, somebody's been saving them. Some man who brought them back from Italy is saving them for generations. I just love that. And for this free heirloom seeds, you have to pay the shipping, and they ask for a donation. So it can be a flat fee, and you can, get a whole bunch of seeds basically for free. And that's my presentation. I hope that that was interesting to you and it gets you excited about possibly starting seeds here in the winter time when you think you could do some winter gardening.
Oh, hi, this is Kathy Fox.
Hi,
I'm sorry.
Kathy.
Hi there, Jen. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I wasn't here right at the beginning to introduce you. I was coming home from babysitting my granddaughter, but I made
That's
it
okay.
through the
I'm
whole.
not shy.
I know. But the co-op really would like to thank you so much for coming out and doing this. We know you've come out to volunteer before. We really appreciate that. And I did want to tell the audience that we have, actually, this is our fifth year collaborating with the library to bring you these 1 hour webinars during the winter, one a month. And we're doing four this year. This is our first one. We have three more, but since I didn't realize I was going to be doing this, I don't have the topics off the top of my head. However, if you get you can either go onto our website or the library's website, or if you're a member of the library and get their emails, usually you can see how you can register. But we'd love for everyone to come back for the next three. Thanks so much. And
Well,
feel free to ask if there's any questions again. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. What are you? So I'll ask you guys questions. I can't help myself. I work in higher ed. Um, what are, how many of you have never started seeds before? You can put it in the chat if you've never done it before. If Tell me what level of gardener you are. Are you new at this? Are you interested? Are you are you on the call because someone told you to do it? Feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Um,
Yay, Mandy. Wonderful.
um, okay, I'll go first. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I've tried this, like I've tried it. And I know about stratification and stuff, but about the watering, if you have to water them or not, that really helped a lot. So I'm gonna try it again. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and if it didn't work out before,
Mhm.
it's nature. There
Mhm.
are no guarantees. You could have had lousy seeds. Sometimes, you get a bad batch or, who knows? I kicked a couple over. One time my dog kicked a couple over. That's a good point to make is put them someplace where they're going to be out of the way. Because I had them close to my door like a dope, and my dogs were zooming around and they knocked a couple over. And one of them grew because it was kale, and kale will grow. Kale will grow.
Oh, my kale self-seeds every year, so I don't have
Yep,
to worry
yep.
about
Kale
seeds.
will be here, when we're not. But
Yeah.
and even though it was kind of tipped, it grew like this way. It was pretty incredible. I wonder what is the best location to put my planters. We have a brick house which gets lots of sun. Would that be a good place to place the containers? Yes. They should be in an area. That's a pretty important point. Thank you for pointing that out. They should be in an area that gets a good amount of sun. But I don't have them. My vegetable garden faces south, which so it's like tremendous amount of sun, but where I put it is actually in the east because it's outside my door. I'm not going to walk, around to these. So I put them where I can see them, and they do great there. They get a lot of morning sun up until, you know, probably 1 o'clock. They get really good sun. But because they're mostly just tucking in and getting that cold blanket, you don't have to worry about them being in the southern part of your yard. And I would also say if you have them against a brick wall, that can sometimes might make them really warm. And so you might want to, check them if that's the place where you want to put them. I would keep an eye on them in case you do need to water because those kinds of things, those factors can cause, different changes. They can make it the brick wall can really absorb a lot of heat. Can they stay outside if there's snow on the ground? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's what's cool about it. The snow is insulating them, the snow is watering them. It's doing all the things. It's like a whole little macro or micro world in there. But and the snow's keeping them warm, but also then giving them some precipitation and some water. So yes, absolutely. Can't wait to reuse containers. Yes. That's what I love. I think that's what I love almost as much as I love, getting a bunch of cheap plants and packing them all into this one container. I love that I'm reusing trash, basically. And if you've got a neighbor who has a little brewery in his basement, then you're golden. I go outside some days and there's a whole bunch of empty containers on my porch from my neighbor.
I have a question. If you only planted three plants, which ones would be the ones that you'd choose
Oh my gosh. For winter sowing or just in general?
for winter sowing?
Okay. It would definitely be, oh gosh, that is a hard one. Hmm. I am trying to have a whole native garden outside my house. I got rid of all my grass. And even though it's not a huge yard, it's a lot of space to fill. And so perennials, any kind of perennials, because again, I'm cheap and it's expensive to buy plants, And so if I couldn't do anything else, that's what I would do. I would do flowers. Yeah. And things that I wouldn't do, I thought I'd get a question about that. Things that I wouldn't do are things like tomatoes or peppers. Could you do it? Absolutely, you could. But I'm more interested in growing them, starting them in my house so that they're a good size by the time that they can be put out and so that I can get a bigger jump on them growing. Since they're hot weather plants, they'll grow in this atmosphere, but they'll be teeny, teeny, tiny. It'll take them much longer because they need lots and lots of warm days. So those are, peppers, eggplant, um, tomatoes, anything that is basically like a hot summer weather plant that loves that, I will still do them the traditional way of seed starting inside.
There's a question in the chat. How do you separate the plants?
It's amazing. So really, it is, you don't have to be precious with them at all. So because they've grown this way, I mentioned before, they tend to be hardier. And so you could have this container here could have 10, 10, 12 really big sized plants next to each other, like they're on a subway car, like, really, really close. And all you'd have to do is take them out, scoop them out, and you just can separate them. And they're so healthy and they're so strong that you can separate them without having any dirt on them. I mean, honestly, it is so amazing how this works because when I first did it, I was nervous about how many, how I was like, oh, maybe they won't all sprout. All of my seeds sprouted. And so it was really packed in there. And, I just kind of separated them carefully, but not even really that carefully, honestly. And they just, they came apart and then I just planted them. Some of them I did, instead of, because I plant every seed. And so I get, so many plants. Some of them I transplanted into little pots and sold them, the ones that I wasn't going to put in my garden, but otherwise I took them right from the container, separated them and plunked them in the ground. And they were healthy as anything and strong and next to my tomatoes that I grew inside the house, they looked robust. My potatoes sometimes are a little spindly because I don't use a grow light. I use just fluorescent shop lights because again, I'm cheap. And these were so sturdy and the roots were really, really strong. And so, yeah, you don't have to be too tender. You're welcome, Anne Marie. So there are loads and loads and loads of videos and websites that talk about winter sowing. If you get nervous, you forget something I said, or you don't want to listen to my voice and go back on the recording on the library's website, um, you can find lots and lots of resources. And just keep in mind what I said about how sometimes they get a little precious. This isn't rocket science. This is fun. Have fun. Have fun and, maybe one of your seed packets, maybe you get two plants out of the 25 seeds you did because the seeds maybe are old. You got two or three plants. Awesome. And they weren't in your house taking up space. They're outside. You're doing something rather than sitting on the sofa and watching endless television. I don't know who I'm talking about. I think it's me. You're doing something and getting some vitamin D, just even putting them outside. So I really hope you'll try it. And if you're nervous about it, uh, and you want to talk to me, go on my website. I'll share that again. And my on my website you can see my email is, let me see this here again. Do, 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 do. Oops. Oh my gosh. Slideshow. Um, if you go on the attainablegardener.net, you can ask questions, and I am really happy to talk about it. I could talk about this stuff all day long. I just love it. And if you've never tried seeds or never gardened at all, I just think this is a great way to start. And it's so good for your mental health to get outside and do something. And I swear, putting your hands in some dirt just makes you feel better. So, and it's, you won't get in any trouble. It's a good habit to have.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jen. We really
My
appreciate you being
pleasure.
here. I did want to
Yeah.
mention that you can also, we'll not yet, but we will download this onto the co-op's website. And on our website, you can find a video of every single one of our webinars through the 4 years previous to this. So feel free to go back and watch any of those. But yeah, thanks so much. And I hope we'll see all of you next month.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.